y'all help me understand something real quick. Why is Myles Garrett not an MVP of the league? Why is he not the MVP? I don't understand it. There's no requirement that says you have to win a certain amount of games in order to be considered for the MVP discussion. There's no requirement that says that. So the excuse of, oh, they haven't won enough games, they haven't, did enough, they're one of the worst teams in the league, that has nothing to do with Myles Garrett. Myles Garrett's effort has put them in the best position to win. And that's what you should want from an MVP. Not, oh, he has to win the game single-handedly. Because at the end of the day, football is a team sport. There's no instances in football history that a player is the sole reason that they win football games. There's no instances of that. Regardless of how many touchdowns they throw, how many whatever, it's always a team game. It takes two to tango, basically. It's always going to take more than one player. It's a team game. Now there's certain teams that if you take this certain player away, they won't have as much success. But to put success solely on one person, it just doesn't happen. And for instance, if you take Myles Garrett away from the Browns absolutely have nothing to look forward to. They have nothing to build around. They have no sense of hope. At least if you take Drake May away from the Patriots, they have a few bright spots in their franchise that, can hold them afloat, such as their defense, such as Travion Henderson. Like, they have a couple, few bright spots. If you take Matthew Stafford away from the Rams, they still have, a couple cornerstones like Kyron Williams, Jared Verse on the defensive side of the ball. Pretty much the defense as a whole. Puka Nacua, you can't forget him. Probably the best player, one of the best players in the league, which is another person that I feel like should be in the MVP conversation, and not Matthew Stafford. It definitely should be Puka. But yeah, I feel like if you look at every other team, I'll say everybody except for Christian McCaffrey, because Christian McCaffrey, he's another one that I feel like you can definitely make a strong case of him being the MVP more than Matthew Stafford or Drake May, the two front runners right now, which makes no sense. At this point, I think that the NFL, they should definitely just make the MVP award a quarterback award rather than classifying it as the most valuable player of the entire league and you only have one position in the running for it. At this point, everybody should have their separate awards at this point. Best player in the league, best quarterback in the league, and so on and so forth. Best rookie, best offensive rookie, defensive rookie. Because now, you're playing with people's emotions. Because the fact that Myles Garrett has broke the all-time sack record, a record that hasn't been broken in 2+ decades, or a decade, 2+ decades, whatever. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's definitely been at least a decade. Actually, it's been 2 decades, 3 decades, man. A record that hasn't been broken in forever, basically. And he's not even considered for it. Just because, they won 4 games. Just because of how the franchise is being handled. You're discrediting what he's doing because of how the franchise is being handled. Which doesn't make any sense to me. So like I said, I think they should just make it a separate award at this point. This man has broke the all-time sack record. If I'm not mistaken, the sack record was I think it was either 20 and a half sacks or 22. It was 20. I think it was between 20 sacks and 23 sacks. It was between that. Either way, he broke the record, and now he's pretty much one of the best defensive players of all time. When you break a record that was once held by probably the greatest defensive player in history with Lawrence Taylor, I don't know how you can not be considered as one of the greatest, or probably the greatest defensive player of all time. You know, and I think Myles Garrett as a whole is not getting enough credit. You know, just because he would rather stick with this franchise rather than go on somewhere else, and for the grass not to be greener on the other side. Because a lot of times we see that the grass is not green on the other side. You know, a dominant player goes to another team and it doesn't turn out like people thought it would, or he ends up getting injured and now his career is on the downfall. Like, we've seen it happen before. So I just think that he definitely needs enough credit. And just because the Browns are not winning, let's not discredit what Myles Garrett is doing. If Myles Garrett was off the Browns, like I said, the Browns will definitely be the worst franchise in the history of football. Not just football, but of sports. Myles Garrett is the only reason that people even tune into Browns games. He's the only reason that people on Madden choose the Browns. He's the only reason. He's the only reason that people are even going to Browns games still. You know, he's the only reason that, like I said, people are even know what the Browns are. You know, he's the only reason that the people even know the Browns exist. You know, and to do what he's doing and for them to still not be winning, that just goes to show you that it's not him, it's the franchise. You know what I'm saying? For him to get 20 and a half or 22 sacks in the season, that's not, bro, that's unreal. We might not ever see this again. And I will say we won't ever see this again, because it took 2-3 decades before to break this record. So imagine how long it's going to take to even break an even tougher record. You know what I'm saying? This man literally broke the all-time sack record that was held by arguably the greatest defensive player of all time. You know? And it's like, it's to the point where people don't even care about defense no more. It's just about quarterbacks and offense. Of course, quarterbacks are going to throw for 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns when, you know, they're the only ones that on the field that touch the ball every play besides the center. They're the only ones that continuously touch the ball every play besides the center and running back. They're the only ones. So of course they're going to be putting up numbers like this, because out of anybody on the field, they have the most control. Everybody else is pretty much handicapped of what they can do. You know? They're the only one that can make audibles and tell other people what they're supposed to run. Everybody else can't do that, except for the head coach and quarterback. And everybody else has to be able to spread the wealth between their other teammates. Quarterbacks are the only one where they literally control their own destiny. They can decide where to throw the ball, where not to throw the ball, who gets the ball, who doesn't. You know, and like I said, it's to the point where it's not even about the most valuable player. It's just about who puts up the most stats, or who throws for the most touchdowns, or who scores the most touchdowns. It's more statistical than really. It's more statistical than actually being who's the most valuable towards that organization and franchise. And by that definition, Myles Garrett is the most valuable player in the league, and he's probably been the most valuable player in the league for the past 5 years, if we're being honest. Because like I said, he's the only person that people really tune into Browns games to watch. They have no other reason to watch Browns games but for him. So the term most valuable player, it fits nobody more perfectly than him. And that's all I got for this video. I appreciate y'all for watching. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Do those 3 things for me right now. I'll wait. That's why I'm looking at my watch right now. I'll wait. You did it. But come on, man. Do it. Just do it. You did it. I appreciate it.